Again, thank you very much for joining myself and Sam this morning on this webinar to demonstrate OEE. This is the first in a series of webinars that we at FAST are bringing to the table to make it easy for organizations to access a demonstration without taking up too much of your time. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are watching or joining us this morning from. And please remember, this is also being recorded, so it will be available online after the event. There is a Q&A within your webinar options. So if you do want to drop any questions in throughout the webinar, we will answer any that are relevant to the session. But Sam is an expert at this, and I'm sure he'll probably be covering most of the questions as we're going through. So we will take some time at the end to cover off on any questions that haven't been answered during the presentation. So without further ado, I will kick off on step through our presentation. So this is about helping you fast track to success. We're looking at manufacturing software solutions for digital transformation, so industrial digital transformation, okay? Helping you apply software to improve business process in your organization, primarily at the factory floor level, but right across your business in your back office, maybe as you're dealing with your customers and your suppliers. Today's session, OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. I say I'm very pleased to be joined by Sam Jones, Partnerships Manager at Evicon. Sam, maybe just a quick hello from yourself.
Hello, everybody. As Noel's introduced me there, I'm the Head of Partnerships here at Evicon. So my role is I work with our trusted partners such as FAST to help them serve local companies in their region.
Okay. And I'm the Business Development Manager with FAST Technologies. FAST, I'll introduce in a second. So the quick synopsis of what we're going to cover here today, and we will get you away for 12:45. So just quick introduction to FAST, an overview of our software, and then we'll get under the bonnet of OEE. I'll introduce Sam again, and he will go through a case study demonstration of the software, and then final Q&A and discussion. FAST has been going for 25 years. We're based in Northern Ireland, and we have a number of divisions in the company. We have Fast Service Robotics, DC Systems, and Chemtech. The division I work in is our FAST software, which aligns closely with our automation and our A2 hub. We are about partnering with the best of breed to bring those solutions to existing customers and prospects. And we're particularly focused on working with the SME market so we can partner, inspire, and engage manufacturing businesses. We do that both with our partners and with our customers. So the journey we've had with Evicon has really ticked all of the boxes for FAST. And one of the elements of the software is that we at FAST, as well as presenting that software to you here in this webinar, we are living and breathing and using this software to grow our own business, to improve our own business, to improve our own processes. Okay, and that's what we're talking about. It's really about simplifying the challenges of workflow automation. And I have experience with ERP solutions, large-scale enterprise implementations. And one of the key elements about the software we are introducing to you, and Evicon in particular, is the fact that it is easy to install and easy to use. In this modern world, businesses need to be able to get information quickly and make decisions quickly. This series of webinars, which we've branded Fast Track, okay, is really showing you how we're using the software to meet our own requirements. Our Fast Grow model is about improving the customer success program for our customers, our clients, and those who we are intent on doing business with and helping deliver success for those organizations. So we're looking at software that takes you on the journey through your business. So configuring your orders, getting your orders into the system, a manufacturing execution system then, which allows you to track your production, and then your OEE to calculate and measure the effectiveness of your quality, your performance, your availability. And then asset management software. You've supplied product out into your customer base, and that allows you then to manage and track and continue to service that customer throughout the lifetime of their journey. So OEE, software used to calculate the effectiveness of your equipment and manufacturing. Okay, we've got an expert here in the webinar, so I'm not going to delve or going to dig too deep into that. We promised you that we would put you into the hands of the people who can demonstrate the software and its benefits to you. So Avicon is the trusted partner that we have selected. They're trusted by manufacturers worldwide. Okay, they have some huge global brands within their portfolio, and with their real-time accurate information, you can fast track to success and utilize your true potential. I'll now hand you over to Sam, very capable hand to Sam, and he will take you through the demonstration on Avicon, and then I look forward to discussing with you the Q&A at the end.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Noel. So as Noel's introduced me a little bit already, we're going to be talking about Avicon today, which is a production monitoring tool with a focus on OEE as our main KPI that we measure. To introduce the solution, I always like to talk a little bit about the challenges that we try to solve with Avicon, and I've got them on the slide here, and I'll just give you a quick run through. So one of the main challenges that we come up against, or that we are in discussion with our customers about, is actually trying to eliminate the requirement for manual data collection. We still see a lot of manufacturing companies out there, and I'm not talking about the smaller companies, even the bigger tier 1 brands that we're working with, that's still very heavily reliant on manual data collection. When I talk about manual data collection, there's quite a big range. We could be talking about literally pen and paper on the shop floor with the operators manually inputting things as they occur on the line, on their production line or their machine. So whenever downtime occurs, literally writing it down on the job sheets, the time that the machine hasn't been running. But we also go up the scale a little bit to what we would still call manual data collection, where a company might have an ERP system with maybe a custom developed application. What we call manual data collection is whenever a human, an operator, is having to manually write down things as they occur on their line, so manually tracking when the downtime is happening. That is what we call manual data collection. And the difference that what we try to tackle that with Avicon is we pick up the information from the source. And I'll explain a little bit more about how we do that, but really we're trying to get rid of that reliance on the human, on the operator, and collect the true information from the source, which is the machinery itself. But if we can continue to talk about the problems that come about with manual data collection, there's always the big question about the data integrity. You know, if within a factory, you might have a lot of different operators working across the shop floor. Can you be certain that everyone's recording information in the same way? That's quite a common problem where different teams might be reporting information in different methods. And that doesn't give you the integrity of the data for you to actually make the decisions about where you should be focusing your effort on the shop floor to try and improve the efficiency. But again, if we carry on down that line about collecting data manually, if we're going down that path, there's a lot of intensive data processing. So if we were talking about people filling in their job sheets on the shop floor, commenting or making writing down whenever downtime's occurring. Typically that falls into the hands of the production managers to be collecting that information, maybe putting it into Excel, maybe that information then goes to Power BI or some other business intelligence system. But there's still a lot of intensive data processing, which takes your time away from being able to focus on the really value-added tasks of trying to work on the general efficiency on the shop floor. Then moving on, if we're going to talk about visibility, if with all those processes, it's very uncommon that you can have visibility about what's happening in real time on the shop floor. It's important for you to have that information to hand so you can react quite quickly to problems as they might be occurring. And also, the next one would be the extensive use of paper. Everyone wants to move away from using paper, and the problems that incurs from a sustainability standpoint, but also just going back to the processing. When you're collecting information in a paper format, you still have to probably enter that into another system somewhere. Now, coming to the final points, one of my favorites here would be subjective opinions. Now, I'm sure some of the people in the webinar here are production managers or factory managers, and you could probably relate to this. When you're trying to address, the problems that might be occurring on the shop floor, trying to improve your output, for example, you're probably speaking to the different stakeholders, the operators, the maintenance team, and the engineers to try and figure out what you can do to improve. It's very, very common, or it's human. It's a kind of a human response to react to the person who might be shouting the loudest. But that's, those subjective opinions don't really highlight where you should be focusing your efforts. So it's important to be making your decisions based on data rather than the person who might be, in your face at that time. And all of this comes down to effective resource management. Globally, all the manufacturers are facing problems in regards to, surging energy prices, skilled worker shortage, and reduced profit margins. So it's more important than ever to be capitalizing on the investments that you've already made in regards to headcount, employees, and also the machinery that you already have in place. So with those challenges covered off, let's talk a little bit more about our solution. So how does Evacon work? First of all, we automatically collect the data from the machines themselves. Then we transfer that data to the cloud, and we process that information and show it to you through our application, Evacon, in real time. Next slide, Noel. So in regards to picking up the information from the shop floor, typically we like to retrofit sensors to the machines and the production lines. This example that you can see on the screen here is an optical sensor counting bags of cement as they move down the conveyor. But there is actually hundreds of different ways that we can pick up information from the shop floor. As I say, optical sensors is probably one of the more common ways, but the main message I'd like you to take away from this, regardless of what your production facility looks like, we will have a way that we can collect the data that we need to drive Evacon. Going back to that though, so once we get the information from the sensors, that information is picked up by our IoT devices that you can see on the screen here, and that is then transferred to the cloud. So we use Amazon Web Services as our cloud service provider, but one of the key parts for Evacon is in regards to the sensors, we just use general automation sensors, but it does rely on our own IoT devices that you can see on the screen here. And then finally, we visualize that through the application, which is what I'm going to be mainly showing you for the rest of this meeting today. Just before we move away from the slides here, I just wanted to show you a little bit about what Evacon looks like in a factory environment. So although we pick up the information as in the data from the source, the machineries, we still do want operators to be engaging with Evacon as part of their daily tasks. So we can see on the screen here a few examples of how Evacon would look at the station or at the machines. But it's also very common, or very important, I would say, for Evacon to also be displayed in other parts of the factory. The whole point of Evacon is to get that real-time insight and be able to get the data that you need to react and try and improve the performance on the shop floor. So it's important that everyone is kind of familiar with the interface and can actually see the information they need to drive those improvements. Okay, I'll take over as presenter now and show you a little bit more about the application and how it works.
So just as Sam is doing that, just to remind you of the Q&A function. So obviously, while Sam is demonstrating, this is going to be the point where you may have some questions that you would like maybe Sam to go over something. So please feel free to use the Q&A session as Sam is presenting the software.
No, can you just confirm you can see my screen there?
Yes, we have you on screen. So.
Excellent. So as I mentioned in the previous slides, Evacon is a cloud application. So the beauty of that is there's no software for you to install. To access Evacon, you just need to have a device that can connect to the internet. So here I've opened up the application and at the login screen. Before I jump into showing you the interface, just to cover how the licensing works. So customers pay a license per machine or station that they want to monitor. But within the company, you have unlimited user access. The users are broken into 3 different profiles. So we have shift view users, which would be your operators on the shop floor. Office users, which are in essence read-only users. They can go in and interpret the data, but they can't change any of the configuration. And then you have company administrators, which, as you can imagine, they're the ones who configure the system and have full access. But here, so I'm going to log in now and give you a quick walkthrough. Sorry about that. Soho's stopping my automatic population there. Okay. So as we log in, I've got my tenant here configured, so it takes me straight to the factory overview. So this is just a demo tenant. This isn't a real factory, and this is fabricated data. But in here, I've actually got 4 factories that I can look over. This is, as I said, the factory overview, and I've got it in timeline view at the moment. So I'm looking currently at the construction material factory. But if I scroll down, I've got the food and beverage factory, general factory, pharmaceuticals factory here. What I'm actually looking at is the rolling 8 hours of each of the lines within these factories. I've got a good visual way to see how the line is performing in real time. We'll come back to this view, but what I'll start with now is going to shift view, which I would say is kind of the bread and butter of EVCON. So what I'm looking at on screen here, I've jumped to one of those lines in the food and beverage factory. So here, if I show you at the top here, currently in food and beverage factory, looking at line 1. But here I can toggle between the different lines to actually jump into shift view for any of the lines that I want to interrogate further. But if I stay on food and beverage 1, in Estonia, where I'm based, we've just, it's 2:20, so we've just gone into the next shift. So there's not an awful lot of information here for me to show you. So I'm actually going to jump back to the previous shift so I can explain a little bit more of what we're looking at on screen. As I mentioned, so currently we're looking at food and beverage line 1. The other things I've got on the screen here, so first of all, we've got the quantity that's being produced in the shifts. Currently, we're making the lemonade drink. The OEE on this line is currently running at 73%, so things are pretty good. And then we've got a couple of widgets over here. So we've got speed first off, which is telling me how fast the line is performing. And then we've got an OEE widget, which I can toggle between quickly. We've also got our little mascot, Mr. EVCON, who Noel likes to refer to as Mr. Chips. But Mr. EVCON is kind of the human representation of how the shift is performing. So within my company settings, I've got 73% means that the target is being met. So Mr. EVCON is happy. But actually, depending on what you want to set your thresholds at, Mr. EVCON's emotions will change depending on what the OEE is on that line at any time. And we do get a lot of feedback from operators that they always want to finish their shift with Mr. EVCON in a happy state. But going back to what we're looking at on screen, so bear in mind we've jumped back to the previous shift. Now, you can probably guess what we're looking at here, but we use a traffic light system to indicate how the shift is performing. So green means that this line is running at its ideal cycle time. So it's making the right amount of products that it should be, or its potential maximum output. Yellow means that there's been speed loss. So for whatever reason, the line has had to slow down. And then red is when there's been downtime. So when the machine has been completely stopped. So looking at this previous shift, we've got a lot of information already input. But if I go back to when I was introducing the presentation, we'd still want operators to engage with EVCON as part of their daily task. So as an operator, what would be my responsibility? At the beginning of the shift, I want to tell EVCON that I'm working on this line. So I do that by going down to the operators at the bottom here, and I pick myself from the list. I haven't got Sam Jones on here, so I'm going to pretend for this demonstration that I'm Marcellus Wallace. So I'll pick myself there, say that I'm working from 6 o'clock until 2 o'clock, and then press save. And what that means is all of the data that's collected over the shift will now be tied against Marcellus Wallace. So if you as a company, if you want to benchmark different teams or different operators, it's good practice to get them to tell EVCON who is running that line at any time. Particularly important if you are running maybe day and night shifts, which is quite common that there's a big discrepancy between the night shift and the day. If you can get the operators to tell us who it is, then you can actually go into the reports and review those teams against each other. But going back to me as an operator, so I've told EVCON that I'm running this shift. Then the main responsibility that I would have is bearing in mind this information is coming in real time. So I'll just go back to the current shift. If we stayed here for long enough, you'd slowly see this bar moving across in time. But again, so we've got a bit more information, jumping back to the previous shift here, my main responsibility as an operator is to comment on the downtime. So the way I can see that is if it's already dark red, that means I've already commented on it. If there's a question mark and it's in lighter red here, then my responsibility is then to tell the system what happened at that time. So after the break at 10 o'clock, there was a period of downtime here. What I'm going to do is just click on this, add a reason, and then pick from the various stop groups and reasons to tell Evacon what actually happened. So maybe after the break, I'll say it was organizational, or let's say it was technical actually, and I had to do a machine reset before I could actually pick up the production again. And I press save, and then you can see that lighter red block has gone to dark red, so it's been commented. Other things that the operator would need to do through the shift would be ideally comment on the speed loss, but you can also see on the shift view here, there's these little bubbles, which are what we call checklists. So throughout the shift, the operator probably has certain checks or quality inspections or technical requirements that need to do on the machine. They can be collected through Evacon. So if I go here and find an example, this one would be a machine inspection. So if I just open this, you can see this is what the inspection required at that time. So these would come up in real time on the shift when they're meant to occur. But this machine inspection, so I meant to check the oil level. So this has already been input, wipe the residue of the inspection window, done, and move through it like that. If I can go to the current shift, now there's not an open one. These ones have already been populated, but you can see this checklist feature is quite flexible. It can be for quality inspection, maintenance checks, you name it. A lot of the customers are really kind of pushing the envelope of what they can do with this. But just think of it, if there's any other duties that the operators are meant to do on their machine throughout the shift, you can incorporate that again into Evacon, which from a data standpoint, instead of having multiple tools, or maybe you do these checks on paper, you can all have that through the system from a reporting standpoint, so you can get that data very, very quickly and easily. Finally, the other thing that we'd want the operators to do would be to tell Evacon what product is being made during the shift. So if I say after I came back from the break, we actually finished making the lemonade drink because the target quantity has been reached. So I'd say after the break, we actually started making a different product. So I've gone to add a changeover. I pick which product we're going to be making next. So let's say we're making the 500 milliliter Coca-Cola drink, and the target quantity is 20,000 units. You can also input a lot and batch number if you wanted to, so you could add an extra data point for your reporting, and you can also add a note if required. If I press save here, then what we'll see is that the changeover occurred after the break. We're now working on the cola drink, and you can also see in the top left-hand corner that we've now changed from the lemonade to the cola. This bar is kind of my visual cue to tell me how many units I've got before I hit the target. So if I go over to the next shift, then we can see there's still around 4,800 units that need to be produced in the current shift. A couple of other things to highlight. So in regards to scrap, quality is an important metric for OEE. There's multiple ways that we can pick up scrap within Evacon. It really depends on what your process is at your facility. If you are picking up scrap automatically, then we would recommend that we pick up the scrap automatically with Evacon. So ideally, that would be fitting a secondary sensor. So if we were talking about a bottling line like we've got here, if you have some kind of visual inspection system that's picking up maybe faulty labels or faulty products and then shooting the bottles down another line, we would just have a secondary sensor picked on the line there to pick up when a defective part has gone through. So the scrap would be automatically input into Evacon as it's detected. If you're not automatically picking up scrap, maybe it takes a person to actually do a visual inspection, then you can also add scrap manually. You can either do that on the fly as it occurs. So if I go to the current shift again here, maybe I want to say that the last product that came out of the line was actually scrap. So I pick the most recent signal, add scrap, tell Evacon what happened. So there was a damage detail. The actual quantity was maybe, let's say, 50 pieces I had to take off, and then press save. The other alternative is that you can maybe collect the scrap pieces and add it at the end of the shift. So I can do that by going down to the bottom here, pressing on scrap, adding scrap, and going through the same process. Another point to highlight here, so this is set up for a food and beverage factory. We can also add alternative units. So if within Evacon we're counting, good product in bottles or maybe loaves of bread, for example, you might actually be measuring scrap in weight. So we can have two ways of picking up that information. We can count the signals for the product, but you can also add scrap as an alternative unit, like I said, which might be weight. I will take this chance also just to talk about integrations with Evacon. So going back to when I did this product changeover, with Evacom, we have a very open platform, and it's very easy to integrate Evacom with third-party systems, which might be an ERP or a production planning tool. One of the most common integrations we have would be with ERP. So if we have ERP integrated with Evacom, then actually we can pull production orders straight to the lines. So instead of an operator having to tell us what they're going to be working on, maybe if I delete this and explain again. So delete that changeover. If we were integrated with an ERP, we can push the production orders straight to Evacom, and instead of the operator having to tell us what product they'd be working on, they click on when the changeover occurred, and there would actually be a secondary tab here with a list of the upcoming production orders. So that way they don't have to know what product they should be making. It's very clearly in a list about this is the next order that you need to be working on, the target quantity, and etc. So very open platform. We can integrate with third-party systems like ERP, but also third-party systems like Power BI, and our partners such as FAST are on hand to help you with those type of integrations also. Good. That would be my introduction to ShiftView. I can't see the Q&A, so I might just take a moment just to jump back to the other tab and see if there's any questions that have come up about the ShiftView. Doesn't look like there have been. Noel, do you think there's anything that I've missed in regards to ShiftView that I should mention at this point?
No, not at this stage, Sam. It's all been smooth operation.
Yeah, that's good. So the main takeaway is, yeah, we want the operators to give us the extra information on downtime. They're the best source of information about what's been occurring on the line. But in regards to how they use the system, as hopefully you'll be able to see here, it's very intuitive, very easy to use. And one of the main things around Evacom and with the operators engaging with it is it's a very good way for operators to be able to have constructive conversations with their production managers. So if you imagine, if you're a production manager doing your walkthrough on the shop floor, having this information available at the station for you to be able to speak to your team and actually discuss what's been happening is gold. But yeah, let's move on a little bit. So we'll go to have a quick look at the other views. So going back to factory overview here, this is a different view. So when I came in, I was looking at timeline, which was giving me a rolling review of how the shifts were performing over the last 8 hours. But we've also got live view here, which again uses a traffic light system that similar to the shift view. So yellow means that most of these, all of the lines in the construction material factory are currently not running at peak performance. Red means that there's actually an awful lot of lines that are currently down, and then green means that these lines are running. But this is a real-time view into how the factories are performing. Currently, I'm looking at all of them, but I can toggle between. Maybe if I just want to look at the food and beverage factory now, I can see how those lines are performing. But this view is very common to have like a very prominent place somewhere in the shop floor. So when you're doing those walkthroughs, you can quickly look up and see which lines maybe you want to divert your attention to go and see what's happening. Now, moving on to more on the data points, we'll start with dashboards here. So dashboards are a great way for you to visually get a quick insight into how you're performing against your company kind of KPIs. Within the dashboards, we have what we call widgets here. So there's a few on screen. I'm going to jump to my dashboard for the food and beverage factory to walk you through. So what I'm looking at here, we've got over in the top left-hand corner, kind of OEE over the last 12 months. So our target OEE is 75%. We're currently at 73%, looking at all of the data from the last 12 months. So actually, we're performing pretty good. 73% is a very strong OEE for a food and beverage company. We've also got another way of looking at that, maybe in a bar chart format. But then if we get down to looking at downtime, now we can dig into this data even deeper in the reports, but these dashboards are, as I say, a very good way for you to visually have quick insight into how things are doing. So dashboards are quite commonly used in your weekly stand-ups or maybe with the shift handover to look at how things are performing. But here, if we're looking at downtime, I'm looking at two versions here. My demo tenant is dummy data, so there's not so much variation. But if we were looking at the downtime here for the last 12 months, I can very quickly see how things are moving along. Unfortunately, all of the downtime of the last 12 months is actually creeping up. But if I look now to the last 30 days, I can actually see how things are improving. So actually, the material quality issues are actually decreasing, along with the machine reset time, electrical failure, and people waiting for forklifts. So again, quick and easy way for people to be able to see or have constructive conversations about how things are performing. Now, if I toggle over and let's talk a little bit more about reports. So within the user interface of Evacom, we have our kind of out-of-the-box reports. So we've got a downtime report, speed loss, scrap, OEE, quantities, time usage, and checklists. All of these reports you can dig into in quite fine detail by applying various filters. So if I just give you a little bit of an example here, if I wanted to look at like downtime and maybe want to look at the last month's performance, I can toggle between the different factories. Maybe if we just, again, want to stay on the theme of the food and beverage factory, I supply. Currently, we're looking at stock reasons. So we've got a lot of time for a break, but that's okay. So we're going to get rid of the organizational changes here, and we'll get rid of uncommented. So very quickly now, I've got really good insights for me to understand, okay, what are the main causes for my downtime and where should I be focusing my attention to kind of improve our OEE? So we've got an awful lot of unplanned cleaning going on. So over the last month, we spent 35 hours doing unplanned cleaning. So that highlights something that I'd be wanting to address. And also material shortage. That's we're losing a lot of time because of that. These reports are dynamic, so I can click on to material shortage here and get a little bit more detail about when that downtime was occurring. Now, again, considering that this is a demo database, we don't have an awful lot of variation, but you can see here how you can start to dig into that information to really pinpoint where you should be focusing your efforts. So here we're looking at when material shortages occurred. We've got the report visually at the top here for us to look at. All of the data that we're looking at that's on the screen here, you can export very quickly by just clicking the export button. And again, talking about the integrations here via the API, we can also get information out of Evacom into third-party systems like Power BI. There's a lot of great information that you can interrogate here within Evacom, but probably at your facility, you have other systems that you need to review data from too. So it's still very common for our customers to take the information from Evacom and maybe look at it in Power BI against other information that they have available to them. But as I play around with these reports, if I get to applying different filters and I get a view that I like for a weekly stand-up or for me to report information maybe back to the executives in the company, I can also save my reports and have them easily accessible by going to the top here. So I've got my downtime report for the last 30 days. If I pull that up here, then this is an easy report for me to pull up at any time. Going through here, just to highlight a few others, like I said, about speed loss or OEE. If we can have a quick look at how the OEE is performing here, maybe I want to look at it in a bar chart format. Here we can see things are actually going down slightly over the last 30 days for my factory, but this is, again, still a demo tenant, but and it's also quite consistent. But what we would typically hope to see for any new customers is that we'd see an upward trend here, things improving. But what I would recommend, with these reports or being able to have a good review of the system here, as a follow-up from this demonstration today, Noel will be very happy to give everyone a free demonstration or a free demo account of Evacom. But hopefully, as of what I've shown you today, you can see that the system is very intuitive, very easy to use, and a great way for you to get access to the information you need to drive improvements at your facility. No, I would say I've gone through that quite quickly, but that would probably be my whistle-stop demonstration. But do you think I've missed anything in particular that we should talk about, or maybe?
Well, no, but there's a couple of questions that have come in that are probably good discussion points. So just while you're on the reports here, and you mentioned Power BI a couple of times, Sam. But watching you whiz around the screen there, I think one of the questions coming in was just about how experienced somebody needs to be able to use the reporting function. So I think from my experience, but I'll obviously let you add to that as well. But from my experience, the reporting tool within Evacom, first of all, it pretty much gives you everything that you need. But secondly, it is very intuitive and easy to use. Would that be something that you would tend to hear from customers?
Yeah, very much so. So that's one of the key points of Evacom is its ease of use, and I can maybe talk a little bit about maybe some of our customers in Latin America, where some of the factories in that region of the world have quite a high turnover of staff. And a lot of the feedback that we get from those customers is that because the system is so intuitive and easy to use, there's no extensive training program. When new employees are coming into the factory, just by having a quick tour or a quick introduction from one of their colleagues, they can quickly understand how they can make use of the system. So no, in regards to the reporting elements, it's very intuitive. It's probably quite familiar compared to other applications you might be used to. And yeah, very simple to get the information that you would want to be viewing there.
Yeah. And then there's one other question there, Sam, just taking you right back to probably your first couple of slides about the, I suppose the retrofitting aspect. Probably, how easy is it to, to implement and get and connect to an existing factory? Because I'm sure some organizations will have legacy equipment there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a good question. The process when we start working with the new customers, typically we would have a first meeting, which would also be us to demonstrating the product. And during that call, we would have a conversation about where they might potentially want to trial EVACON. So we get a little bit of information about a potential line or machine that we'd like to set a trial up onto. And then us here, we'd support the customer in helping to diagnose what would be the best hardware to get the information that we need. But in regards to actually implementing it, so if we talk about the hardware component first off, typically for a trial or to get someone up and running, we just have an optical sensor counting good products as it's being produced on the line. To set that up, you're looking at maybe 15 to 30 minutes because it's very much plug and play. We ship you out the hardware. It's putting an optical sensor potentially somewhere on the side of the line, plugging everything in, and you're up and away. As I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the presentation, there are lots of other ways that we can pick up signals from the shop floor. So maybe encoder wheels, PLC, relay kits. And also we have options for hardware-free configuration. So I know this is something that the team at FAST have a lot of experience with. But in regards to getting the data from the shop floor, it can be very quick and easy, literally 15 to 30 minutes to get the hardware set up. And then when we talk about the configuration so actually implementing the system to be up and running, you're probably looking at something like 60 minutes of time to do that initial configuration, which would be adding your products, adding your stock groups and reasons, adding the users, and just configuring your shift patterns. About 60 minutes, and then you can be up and running to at least get a trial running with EVACON. So compared to other systems on the market, that's very quick. We're thinking under 2 hours to have the hardware set up and the initial configuration done, and to be getting the data from the shop floor. I think that's pretty good.
So listen, obviously from the perspective of FAST, we've been growing out our software division by trying to identify the best of breed software within each of those verticals. So we obviously did an extensive analytics because if we're going to bring in this product to our customers and prospects, okay, we need to be confident and have trust in the solution as well. So there's a question in there about how we're using this in our own business, and I probably can give a wee bit of experience there in that. First of all, we so there's another question there that's coming through me about exhibiting next week, and the answer is we are. So this software will be on hand at the exhibition there in the Titanic Quarter on the 12th of September. A wee bit of a plug there. Thanks very much for that. You think that was a fast plug or something? There's two key elements. I'm just conscious of time here for us. One is that, as Sam said there, we had requirement to use sensors. We had requirement to go directly to PLCs, and we also then used an API to connect to our SQL databases. So it was really straightforward, really easy, and as well as the product being very good to work with, the team at EVACON, the support team and those working within the organization aligned with our values. The second thing then is we were exhibiting at an event in Dublin, and at the last minute I contacted Sam to say, listen, you know what, we're going to fire up an AMR and a cobot here. Could we use EVACON to present on screen? And basically I was able to use an app on my phone, and within 30 minutes we had data coming out of a machine on a different Wi-Fi in Dublin. We're using it to help our businesses grow. So we're talking here about using that data to help us make decisions for the customers. So just touching then on, I suppose the key points out of this, it's real-time visual configuration. I think Sam demonstrated that perfectly there. You know, you've seen how easy it was for him to use it and how simple it is. He mentioned all of the conversations with the different members of staff in his organization. So it's that one source of truth. And ultimately, you're aiming to improve your operational discipline and meet your objectives and fast track to success as an organization. So we've one ask there, which is, if you would like to know more, Evicon have very kindly offered to give a 30-day trial to anyone who's interested. So email me at the email address on screen, but I'll be in touch with you all following this event, and say look out for the webinar recording. So on that note, thank you very much for your attendance. We're just a minute over time. Sam, last word to yourself.
Thank you very much everyone for attending. Yeah, really appreciate your time, and yeah, allowing us to give you a quick introduction to Evicon. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Sam, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.